I want to show you what paid propaganda is. This is The View having Trump Derangement Syndrome for all the cackling hens at home in order to retain the suburban women vote, or whoever is without work and is watching The View at whatever hour it's on. Let's take a look. I will be going over a few points here, so stay tuned.
Anyway, yesterday, while speaking with ABC's John Carl, California Governor Gavin Newsom expressed concerns that a third party could end up playing spoiler for Democrats and for President Joe Biden come November. Take a look.
Let's listen to the biggest liar on the planet, the person that can't say a single thing that with veracity, if his life depended on it. He is just programmed to lie, and he does so in a slick way.
I know a third-party candidate isn't likely to be elected president or beat either one, but I mean, how worried are you? Yeah, how worried are you about that?
I have to be worried. But you know what? You got to control the controllables. You got to control what you have to control. Right now, it's getting the vote out. Let's look at no labels. I actually took the time. I encourage people to look up what are they for.
It's kind of your job to take the time, isn't it?
And I thought, wow, this is literally reads as the accomplishment list of the Biden-Harris administration.
Such propaganda.
So, are you concerned with the governor's concerns about a third party?
Yes.
Sorry, a third party?
I am very concerned. I mean, I talk to Joy about it all the time. This is her big thing. She always talks to about Ralph Nader and how he was a spoiler. But I just learned today that when Jill Stein ran and it was Trump versus Hillary, there were 3 states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, where Stein's vote total exceeded Trump's margin of victory. So had she perhaps not been part of it, Hillary Clinton would have been president.
Yeah, and listen, I'm we're old enough to remember when Ross Perot was a spoiler for George Herbert Walker Bush. And in that case, that was 1996. And in that case, you had George Herbert Walker Bush, who's a sane, good, normal human being, running against Bill Clinton. He was a hoe, but he was a normal, good human being. In this case, you have got Joe Biden, a sane, decent, normal human being, running against a man who is an existential threat to democracy and to the foreign world, to the international.
Yes, because he was in office for 4 years, and before COVID, things were just terrible. I mean, no wars, a great economy, the Abraham Accords were signed at the end of his term, and yet this is what the propagandists are putting into these hoes' mouths. I wouldn't put anything else in their mouths.
World to the universe. So this is not a normal, oh, you know what, we can afford to have a spoiler. We can afford to have Manchin running around. There's a lot of very credible people who we know who've left no labels now, including my husband, including Larry Hogan, the governor. I'm not sure Liz Cheney was ever no labels.
Okay,
no.
she wasn't?
No.
A third-party candidate, and they're talking about no labels, which is the platform that Joe Manchin might run on. Just come back to the Democratic base, y'all. Come back to the Democratic base. Don't even think about voting for anybody else. Oh, especially not Robert F. Kennedy. We're halfway through this clip. He ain't been talked about once.
I guess there are definitely concerns of the spoiler effect. I do think that this country is overdue for another option than just 2 political parties, but I think you have to think about how to do that the right way, that it doesn't boost the most unfit individual.
Again,
My thing is this is whenever
this is
conversation...
the pet Republican, as I believe Dave Rubin calls these people, that get their $1 million paychecks and just espouse whatever they are told to. And again, the framing is that Trump is totally unfit. Sorry, he was a really good president. Let's own up to that fact. Maybe you went in assuming that the media was right, that the media was telling you the truth, that he was going to be hell, that he was going to be Satan. But he wasn't. He was really, really good. But this is the framing that they are giving, once again, to the cackling hens sitting in their homes with their husbands at work.
Comes up, it's almost like we're all tacitly acknowledging that Biden is weaker than Trump. That's what it sounds like to me.
He is.
If Trump is actually weaker in a general than Biden, wouldn't that mean that we shouldn't be worried he's going to lose more votes?
No, because the people who support Trump are cult members, and they're not going.
Ooh, cult member. Oh boy, what do I get for dinner? I get to have my whole life set for me because I'm in a cult. It couldn't be the Democrats that can't acknowledge that Trump did a good job, that are just fed the propagandistic lies by the media in order to keep them in their place. But it's me that's in the cult.
Anyone. The people who support Biden are normal human
To be
beings.
honest, I don't think 40 million
Go ahead, insult me more, biatch.
Americans are cult members. I think there's
Thank
a
you.
lot of people
Thank you.
who can close their nose, they don't pay attention to the 24-hour news cycle, and they're like, yeah, but you know what, the economy was better.
Yeah,
if
it
you're
was
watching
better.
Fox News, you have no idea about the E. Jean Carroll
If he's
defamation.
indicted 90.
Yeah, Trump being found in absence over something that happened 30 years ago, that they changed the law in order to remove the statute of limitations so specifically that they could sue Donald Trump and have another stain on his record. Oh, yes, something that nobody remembered, that she didn't really report to anybody. And because he says, I didn't do it, how dare you? How dare you say you didn't do it? That's defamation. $83 million, but we have a totally fair justice system, don't we?
Times, and his poll numbers keep going up, and he keeps running away with primaries. I think it's concerning.
Yeah. Well, why do you think? Because we see the lawfare that you're aiming at him, and we expect that you will do the same thing that you did during the Summer of Love riots, where anybody that was rioting was protected. And in fact, they were recently, the total paid out by Democrat blue-leaning cities is $200 million of your taxpayer money, your local money, your federal money that they're given by Joe Biden is going to pay the rioters. So we think, well, you're doing that to us there. You're doing this. You're destroying the country. The more you go after him, the more loyal we are.
Listen, we all heard him boast on tape in 2016 about grabbing a woman, about sexually assaulting a woman, and Republicans.
Again, false framing. He was saying in a locker room banter that he could get away with it. Not that he did it, but that's the way you're framing it for your watchers at home. It is just media lies. It's rather disgusting if you ask me. It's unfair, and I think that Donald Trump should sue you for defamation. Maybe he'll get $83 million of your money.
Still voted for him blindly,
and 53% of them were women. This is not the time for a third party. Change comes very slowly in this country, as we know, watching the history that has unfolded here, good and bad. It takes time. We are a bipartisan situation right now. There is not a runway to bring in a third, although, Alyssa, I do concede, the polls show people are not super psyched about the candidates in general right now.
No, actually, people are pretty damn psyched about Donald Trump, and I didn't used to be. Again, I am a former Democrat. But I've seen the way that the Democrats have behaved, and I want Odysseus to come back home and to sling the bow and kill every single one of them, proverbially.
But there is no room to swap it out, although I'm all on board for a split ticket third party going forward after this election.
I am going to
that.
say this again. Polls do not make an election. Polls lie.
You know what does make an election? Rigging the vote, changing the rules, making sure that mail-in voting happens, and maybe whatever else might have happened behind the scenes. That's what might have made an election.
Because Hillary Clinton would have been president if the polls had been correct. Do not trust the polls. Trust what you know. The man said
Trust what you
recently.
know. Trust what you know.
One.
Trust what you know. Trust what we tell you, in other words. Trust what we tell you. The talking points of the deep state, the Democrats. This is what your tax dollars are paying for. I'm going to talk about that in a second.
Day one, I'm going to be a dictator.
And it was a joke.
The fact that
it was a joke. For one day, he said.
Dictator came out of his mouth as an American citizen in this country should turn your stomach. It should turn your stomach. So that's the decision. That's the decision everybody has to make. You want a dictatorship even on day one or at all? Or you want to fight it out like Americans do and try to get the best country we can put together?
Well, that was just hilarious for me. You see the propaganda that they are enacting. Trust us. Trust what you know. Trust your friends. You know us. You know us. Trust us. No third-party candidate should be running. Oh, I wonder whether or not they might be referencing RFK. You know that name? RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who might be running on the Libertarian ticket so that he will be on all 50 states' ballots, which would be a boon for the Libertarians. Why didn't they mention him? They talk about Joe Manchin. They don't want you to know that there's an alternative, the Democrat that they are intentionally keeping off the ballot so that they can put in their little puppet, Joe Biden, somebody with differences to what the deep state want. And I was talking about something before. Really, what this is all about are after the taxpayer dollars, that gigantic fund that is raided by the multinational corporations. And that is who is really in charge. And that is the whole game, is to get puppets in office where they can take from that honeypot, from that taxpayer piggy bank that we give them every year so that they can pilfer from us. And RFK poses a problem. Joe Biden is old and senile. He was their puppet from the get-go. And this is the way it's been throughout time. Although I have to believe with all the recent money printing that it's really ramped up. But you see how they frame that if you vote for Donald Trump, you're absolutely evil. You're in a cult. Remember, I'm in a cult because as an ex-Democrat, I've seen what you've done. And now I've gone over to the cult side where every single meal is made for us. And I pray every single morning to Lord Trump. And I bow before his effigy, which you guys want to hang. Yes. And you bring up E. Jean Carroll, you bring up all of the media lies, and this is just propaganda by the deep state that is being paid for with your taxpayer dollars so that they can convince you not to vote for a candidate that might disrupt, and Donald Trump might not even be the best disruptor. It might be RFK, which is why they never mention him as a third-party candidate, but they leave that indelible message in your mind, don't vote third party. So I hope that I've exposed the corruption that I see and the propaganda that is the mainstream media that is just preaching to people that don't know this. And I hope that you can share this with them so that they can see, and thumb up the video and share it because it does help. YouTube, if you're watching on me there, has me on shadow ban and lockdown at the same time. They aren't very kind. Join me at rumble.com also. Peace and have a fantastic day. Leave your thoughts in the comments.